Eating Christmas in the Kalahari by Richard B. Lee, published December 1969, issue of Natural History, recounts the author's experience with the Kong Bushman tribe during a Christmas celebration in the Kalahari Desert. Lee, an anthropologist, describes how he purchased a large horse to show gratitude to the Bushman tribe for their cooperation throughout the year. However, the Bushmen criticized the horse, calling it thin and worthless, which puzzled Lee. He later learned that this was a customary way for the Bushmen to prevent arrogance and maintain humility within their community. The article highlights the cultural differences and the importance of understanding and respecting local customs and tradition. Lee's initial interpretation of the Bushman criticism was influenced by his own cultural background, which didn't account for the Bushman emphasis on humility and communal nature of their society. His worldview led him to see the criticism as a personal affront and a sign of ingratitude, rather than as a cultural practice aimed at maintaining social equilibrium. This misunderstanding underscores the impact worldview has on the interpretation of cultural meaning. This article ultimately demonstrates that cultural practices and meanings are deeply embedded in the worldview of a community. Understanding this worldview is crucial for interpreting cultural behavior accurately and respectfully. Lee's experience served as a reminder of the importance of cultural sensitivity and the need to approach cross-cultural interaction with an open mind and a willingness to learn. One ethnocentric bias in the article is evidenced in Lee's initial interpretation of the Kong Bushman reaction to the horse he purchased for the Christmas feast. Lee, coming from a Western cultural background, viewed the act of giving a large meaty horse as a generous and significant gesture of gratitude. He expected the Bushman to appreciate the gift in the same way he would in his own culture. However, the Bushman reaction was quite different. They criticized the horse, calling it thin and worthless. This made Lee puzzled and hurt by their response, interpreting it as ingratitude and personal affront. He did not understand that the Bushman criticism was a customary way to ensure that none become boastful or feel superior to others. This misunderstanding highlights how Lee's ethnocentric bias shaped his interpretation of the Bushman behavior. This story challenges the notion that one's cultural values are normal or best by showing how Lee's ethnocentric bias led him to misinterpreting the Bushman's behavior. There are norms like in my own culture, there is an ethnic group there. When I saw it the first time, I kind of said, what? Are they barbaric? But no, it was their culture. In this tribe is called the Ijaws, Ijaws. They are in Nigeria, and they are actually in the west aspect of Nigeria, The culture is this because they live in the coastline. They live even on top of the sea. So every newborn in this culture must be dipped into the sea and left. If the child does not float up, they will say it's not meant to survive. Because in their belief and custom, any of their children should be able to survive the sea. But I come from a different area in the same country, and we have our own culture, quite different. When I saw this culture the first time, I almost got out of my skin. I said, what? Barbaric. But when I asked questions and I was explaining why they do that, wow, and I said, okay, I understand. It makes sense. Any of their children that can, they live virtually on the top of the sea. They feed from the sea, they live by the sea. So any child of theirs that cannot survive the sea virtually is not meant to survive because he's going to eventually get drowned. So somehow I was able to understand and respect their culture for them, So the best practice um, I personally will suggest for communication across culture is to approach interaction with cultural humility, recognizing that one's own cultural value are not universally applicable, and being open to learning, understanding, and respecting the cultural practices and worldviews of others. This approach fosters mutual respect and understanding, leading to more effective and meaningful cross-cultural interaction. For instance, in the article, Lee, by approaching the situation with cultural humility and an openness to learn, was able to eventually understand the Bushman practice and the cultural significance behind it.